Hello, welcome back. It's 5 p.m. I start to get tired. I'm uploading. I like to read a lot, but I'm always tired and thirsty. Maybe I got some water there. Yes. The weather's very bad. Outside is windy and raining. So we don't need to get out. So let's read this epic. So there's many hundreds I like to read, but I can only read one by one. So now I read this.
Epic of Gilgamesh. Epic of Gilgamesh, the Deluge tablet of the Gilgamesh epic in Akkadian written 2100-1200 BC. 1. Country Mesopotamia. Language Akkadian. Media type clay tablet. Full text Epic of Gilgamesh at Wikisource. The Epic of Gilgamesh /LM/2 is an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia. The literary history of Gilgamesh begins with 5 Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh, Sumerian for Gilgamesh, king of Iraq, dating from the 3rd dynasty of Ur, c. 2100 BC. 1. These independent stories were later used as source material for a combined epic in Akkadian. The first surviving version of this combined epic, known as the Old Babylonian version, dates back to the 18th century BC and is titled after its incipit, Shah, surpassing all other kings. Only a few tablets of it have survived. The later Standard Babylonian version compiled by Sinulchianini dates from the 13th to the 10th centuries BC and bears the incipit Shinukbam Yoru. Note 1. He who saw the abyss, lit. He who sees the unknown. Approximately 2/3 of this longer, 12-tablet version have been recovered. Some of the best copies were discovered in the library ruins of the 7th century BC Assyrian king Ashurbanipal. The first half of the story discusses Gilgamesh, who was king of Iraq, and Enkidu, a wild man created by the gods to stop Gilgamesh from oppressing the people of Iraq. After Enkidu becomes civilized through sexual initiation with Shamhat, he travels to Iraq, where he challenges Gilgamesh to a test of strength. Gilgamesh wins the contest. Nonetheless, the two become friends. Together, they make a 6-day journey to the legendary cedar forest, where they plan to slay the guardian, Humbaba the Terrible, and cut down the sacred cedar. 4. The goddess Ishtar sends the bull of heaven to punish Gilgamesh for spurning her advances. Gilgamesh and Enkidu kill the bull of heaven, after which the gods decide to sentence Enkidu to death and kill him. In the second half of the epic, distress over Enkidu's death causes Gilgamesh to undertake a long and perilous journey to discover the secret of eternal life. He eventually learns that life, which you look for, you will never find. For when the gods created man, they let death be his share, and life withheld in their own hands. 5, 6. Nevertheless, because of his great building projects, his account of Siduri's advice, and what the immortal man Utnapishtim told him about the Great Flood, Gilgamesh's fame survived well after his death, with expanding interest in his story. It has been translated into many languages and is featured in several works of popular fiction. The epic is regarded as a foundational work in religion and the tradition of heroic sagas. with Gilgamesh forming the prototype for later heroes like Heracles, Hercules, and the epic itself serving as an influence for Homeric epics. 7. Discovery. Ancient Assyrian statue currently in the Louvre possibly representing Gilgamesh. This discovery is evidently destined to excite a lively controversy. For the present the Orthodox people are in great delight, and are very much prepossessed with corroboration which it affords to biblical history. It is possible, however, as has been pointed out, that the Chaldean inscription, if genuine, may be regarded as a confirmation of the statement that there are various traditions of deluge apart from the biblical one, which is perhaps legendary like the rest. The New York Times front page, 1872, 8, Enkidu, Gilgamesh's friend. From your Iraq, 2027-1763 BC. Iraq Museum. About 15,000 fragments of Assyrian cuneiform tablets were discovered in the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh by Austin Henry Lerard, his assistant Hormuz Drasim, and W. K. Loftus in the early 1850s. 9. Late in the following decade, the British Museum hired George Smith to study this. In 1872, Smith retranslated fragments before the Society of Biblical Archaeology. 10, and in 1875 and 1876 he published fuller translations, 11, the latter of which was published as the Chaldean account of Genesis. 9. The central character of Gilgamesh was initially reintroduced to Theold as Izdubar, before the cuneiform logographs in his name could be pronounced accurately. 9. 12. In 1891, Paul Haupt collected the cuneiform text, and 9 years later, Peter Jensen provided a comprehensive edition. R. Campbell Thompson updated Bothof their work in 1930. Over the next 2 decades, Samuel Noah Kramer reassembled the Sumerian poems. 11. In 1998, American Assyriologist Theodore Kosman discovered a piece believed to have contained the first lines of the epic in the storeroom of the British Museum. The fragment, found in 1878 and dated to between 600 BC and 100 BC, had remained unexamined by experts for more than a century since its recovery. 13. The fragment read, "He who saw all, who was the foundation of the land, who knew everything, was wise in all matters." Gilgamesh. 14. The discovery of artifacts, c. 2600 BC, associated with Enmebaragisi of Kish, mentioned in the legends as the fire of one of Gilgamesh's adversaries, has lent credibility to the historical existence of Gilgamesh. 15. In the early 2000s, the Gilgamesh Dream Tablet was imported illegally into the United States. According to the United States Department of Justice, the tablet was encrusted with dirt and unreadable when it was purchased by a U.S. antiquities dealer in 2003. The tablet was sold by an unnamed antiques dealer in 2007 with a letter falsely stating that it had been inside a box of ancient bronze fragments purchased in a 1981 auction. 16. In 2014, Hobby Lobby privately purchased the tablet for display at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. 16. 17. In 2019, the Gilgamesh Dream Tablet was seized by U.S. officials and was returned to Iraq in September 2021. 18. 19. Versions. Distinct sources exist from over a 2,000-year time frame. The earliest Sumerian poems are now generally considered to be distinct stories, rather than parts of a single epic. 20. They date from as early as the 3rd dynasty of Ur, c. 2100 BC. 21. The Old Babylonian Tablets. The Gilgamesh Dream Tablet. From Iraq. Middle Babylonian period, 1st Sealand dynasty, 1732 to 1460 BCE. Iraq Museum, Baghdad. This dreamt tablet recounts a part of the Epic of Gilgamesh in which the hero, Gilgamesh describes his dreams to his mother, the goddess Ninsun, who interprets them as announcing the arrival of a new friend, who will become his companion. C. 1800 BC. 20 are the earliest surviving tablets for a single epic of Gilgamesh narrative. 22. The older Old Babylonian tablets and later Akkadian version are important sources for modern translations, with the earlier texts mainly used to fill in gaps, lacunae, in the later texts. Although several revised versions based on new discovery have been published, the epic remains incomplete. 23. Analysis of Old Babylonian text has been used to reconstruct possibly earlier forms of the epic. 24. The most recent Akkadian version, also referred to as the Standard Babylonian version, consists of 12 tablets and was edited by Simultaneously. 25. Who is thought to have lived sometime between 1300 BC and 1000 BC. 26. From the diverse sources found, two main versions of the epic have been partially reconstructed: the Standard Babylonian version, or He Who Saw the Deep, and the Old Babylonian version, or Surpassing All Other Kings. 5 earlier Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh have been partially recovered, some with primitive versions of specific episodes in the Babylonian version, others with related stories. Standard Babylonian version. The Standard Babylonian version was discovered by Hormuzd Rassam in the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh in 1853. Standard Babylonian refers to a literary style that was used for literary purposes. This version was compiled by Simlai-Kunini sometime between 1300 and 1000 BC from earlier texts. 26. 27. One impact that Simlai-Kunini brought to the work was to bring the issue of mortality to the foreground, thus making it possible for the character to move from being an adventurer to a wise man. 27. According to Linz Brandau, the standard version can be seen in this sense as sapiential literature, common in the Middle East. 28. 29. The standard Babylonian version has different opening words, or incipit, from the older version. The older version begins with the words surpassing all other kings, while the standard Babylonian version has Hu Ho saw the deep, Anakba Muru, deep, referring to the mysteries of the information brought back by Gilgamesh from his meeting with Utanapishti, Utnapishtim, about Ea, the fountain of wisdom. 23. 30. Gilgamesh was given knowledge of how to worship the gods, why death was ordained for human beings, what makes a good king, and how to live a good life. The story of Utnapishtim, the hero of the flood myth, can also be found in the Babylonian epic of Atrahasis. 31. 32. The standard version is also known as a Kargildan series of Gilgamesh. 27. The 12th tablet is a sequel to the original 11, and was probably appended at a later date. 33. It bears little relation to the well-crafted 11 tablet epic. The lines at the beginning of the first tablet are quoted at the end of 11th tablet, giving it circularity and finality. Tablet 12 is a near copy of an earlier Sumerian tale, Aprikel, in which Gilgamesh sends Enkidu to retrieve some objects of his from the underworld, and Hera returns in the form of a spirit to relate the nature of the underworld to Gilgamesh. In terms of form, the poetic conventions followed in the standard Babylonian version appear to be inconsistent and are still controversial among scholars. There is, however, extensive use of parallelism across sets of 2 or 3 adjacent lines, much like in the Hebrew Psalms. Genre. When it was discovered in the 19th century, the story of Gilgamesh was classified as a Greek epic, a genre known in Europe, even though it predates the Greek culture that spawned epics. 34. Specifically, when Herodotus referred to the works of Homer in this way. 35. When Alfred Jeremias translated the text, He insisted on the relationship to Genesis by giving the title Isdeuva Nimrod and by recognizing the genre as that of Greek heroic poetry. Although the equalization to Nimrod was dropped, the view of Greek epic was retained. 12. Martin Litchfield West, in 1966, in the preface to his edition of Hesiod, recognized the proximity of the Greeks to the Middle Eastern center of convergence. Greek literature is a Near East literature. 36. One difference between the Greek epic poems and Gilgamesh would be the